Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a historical archive that's so rich. I mean, so deeply invasive, it really changes how we think about biography, about history itself.
Absolutely.
Our subject today is, well, the celebrated poet Francis Blundy, but also highly problematic, right? And his whole world, his life, his marriage to Vivian, and we're looking at it all from the future.
That's right. Our viewpoint is about a century ahead, after 2119, looking back at what those future historians call the 90-30 era, so 1990 to 2030.
And they look back with this mix of fascination and, well, real contempt, it seems.
A profound contempt, yeah.
Yeah.
Mixed with awe at what was achieved, but mostly contempt for what was thrown away.
And the central puzzle, the thing driving this deep dive, is this almost obsessive search by a future scholar, Thomas, for a lost poem.
Right, a corona for Vivian, a sequence of sonnets Francis supposedly wrote for Vivian's 54th birthday.
But this isn't just some, literary treasure hunt. It goes deeper.
Oh, much deeper. It's really a moral investigation. Our mission here is to figure out what can actually be known about Blundy Circle, this hyper-documented life.
You've got this contrast, right? The incredible detail from the digital age
Unparalleled detail.
versus the shocking moral blindness of that time right before it all collapsed.
Exactly. What happens when historians literally have too much information? Does it clarify things or just create noise?
That's the question. And what hits you first is just the sheer volume of data. It's
That's right.
strange, almost unnatural.
It is. We're used to history being about scarcity.
Yeah.
Fighting for scraps of evidence for figures like Shakespeare.
Yeah. A will, a church record.
Right. A handful of public documents and centuries of arguments. Was he Catholic? Did he go to Italy? We just don't have the data, so it's all inference speculation.
But the Blundys, they lived in what you called a privacy-free archive.
Precisely. That's the term the future uses. The data deluge defines studying the 90-30 era. The future inherited these vast, unedited records.
We're talking photos, interviews.
Centuries of photos, hundreds of recorded interviews, newspaper profiles, sure. And every physical letter Francis wrote or received, he kept everything, planning to sell his archive.
Okay, but then the digital stuff.
That's the tsunami. The cloud storage, as they call it, those data machines, survived the collapse somehow. So we have thousands, maybe millions of digital messages.
Their moods, arguments.
Everything. Their disappointments, their grocery lists, even messages they thought were totally private, end-to-end encrypted. The future tech, the computational archaeology just laid it all bare.
Wow. I mean, that feels deeply uncomfortable, but also completely fascinating.
It is. And that future scholar's phrase nails it. We have robbed the past of its privacy.
Is that a burden or a deliverance? Does all this detail actually help us understand, or does it just drown us?
Well, it gives you overwhelming specificity. Maybe not wisdom, though. It makes the past almost unbearably present.
Like knowing more about them than your own friends.
Literally. Future academics know more about the Blundys' daily routines than their own colleagues. The source material lets us pinpoint the exact variety of potato. Vivian was peeling for that 54th birthday dinner in October 2014.
You're kidding?
Nope. Rooster potatoes. We know because she sent an instant message about it to her sister, Rachel.
Rooster potatoes.
Yeah.
It's almost funny, but also profoundly sad, isn't it? The world is hurtling towards disaster, and we know the type of potato she was peeling.
It tells you something, though. They were living through this golden age, as the future calls it, but utterly consumed by the everyday, the trivial.
So we have the data point, but does it get us closer to her soul? Or just her shopping habits?
And that is the biographer's core struggle. The mountain of facts gives you certainty about the mundane, but that essential inner life, that's much harder.
Which brings us right to the heart of it, the Blundy marriage.
Yes, the hyper-documented core of the archive.
And Vivian's role is central here. She wasn't just, the wife. She was an intellectual herself.
Absolutely. Distinguished career. Wrote a respected biography of the poet John Clare. Taught at Oxford. A serious academic.
But she gave it all up. Moved to this huge, echoey place, the Barn, in rural Gloucestershire. 7,000 books of his.
To, as the sources say, serve another's genius.
It sounds like a conscious choice, but the reality.
The documents paint a stark picture. A dramatically unequal setup. She became the sole manager of everything domestic.
Cooking, cleaning.
Driving Francis everywhere he refused to drive. Managing his complex finances, his literary business, even mowing the lawn. The evidence is just there, irrefutable.
And how did others see it, people outside the marriage?
We have this account from a woman friend looking back years later. She called it medieval serfdom.
Medieval serfdom. Wow, that's
It
harsh.
sounds suffocating, doesn't it? And the friend pinpointed the reason. Francis's entitlement. He never stirred from his chair, never did a thing. He was, after all, a genius.
Ah, the genius card. Justification for everything.
It seemed to be, for his circle anyway. Total personal and domestic helplessness, excused by talent.
But Vivian's own perspective, from her private writings,
Mm-hmm.
it's more complicated than just being a victim, isn't it?
Much more. She explicitly writes she didn't regret marrying him, the great poet. But then there's that incredibly unsettling line.
But what about enjoying disliking him?
I wonder if I sometimes enjoy disliking him. Darkly funny, but also deeply sad.
And that's the power of this archive, right? It shows you the subjective truth, the messy reality behind the public image.
Exactly. The successful poet, the devoted wife. The reality was far more complex and, frankly, often squalid.
Which leads us to the betrayals, because the documentation here is, well, it's forensic.
It really is. We know about Vivian's affair with Harry Kitchener.
Who was Francis's editor and her brother-in-law. Talk about complicated.
Extremely. It was conducted in these hurried, secret moments, often just meeting in her car.
And her writing shows she actually got something out of the risk itself.
Yes, she wrote that deception conferred significance. It gave her this illicit thrill, maybe a sense of agency in a life that felt otherwise totally controlled by Francis's needs.
She had to lie constantly, use her nephew's visits as cover.
Right, elaborate schemes just to snatch a few moments with Harry. It's a stark contrast to the devoted wife image.
But as painful as that deception might have been, it seems almost minor compared to Francis's documented actions, particularly around Vivian's first husband, Percy Green.
Ah, yes. This is where the archive gets genuinely chilling. Percy Green had Alzheimer's, was in terminal decline. Vivian was still dedicated to caring for him.
And Francis saw this as an inconvenience.
Basically, yes. A logistical problem blocking his own domestic comfort. He was tired of her commitment to Percy.
And his proposed solution was just beyond belief.
It was monstrous, plain and simple. He offered to murder Percy.
He actually offered to kill him.
Yes, so they could be together, unburdened, at the barn. He laid out a plan, promised her there'd be no risk to her.
This wasn't just like dark humor or venting.
The source material is clear. Francis was serious. It came from this place of absolute narcissistic entitlement. The normal rules, basic human decency, just didn't apply to him or his desires.
That level of arrogance, offering murder like it's a solution to a plumbing problem. It feels like a miniature version of the arrogance he shows later about the planet.
It's the same pattern, isn't it? But Vivian's reaction, her internal processing of this, that's maybe the most psychologically revealing piece in the whole archive.
You deleted email draft.
Exactly. She actually started writing an email to her sister, Rachel, asking if Francis's murder plan was a sensible plan.
A sensible plan. Just saying it sounds insane.
She deleted it almost immediately. But the fact she even typed it, she found the idea horrifying, of course, but also somehow normalized.
Normalized.
She even internally framed it as potential rational extra-legal euthanasia. It shows how Francis's personality, his genius, had maybe warped her own moral compass. Cognitive dissonance on an extreme scale.
So these fragments, the deleted email, her internal justifications, they force the future historians and us to judge Francis completely differently.
Completely. Not by his poems, but by his capacity for this kind of cold-blooded cruelty and betrayal. It reframes his genius entirely. Not brilliance, but maybe a symptom of profound moral failure.
Okay, let's shift focus now. From this intense personal drama to the wider societal picture captured during that key event, the second Immortal dinner in October 2014.
Right. Named, rather grandly, after that original 1817 dinner with Keats and Wordsworth, this was meant to be a showcase.
Celebrating Francis's new poem, The Corona for Vivian, and Vivian, despite everything, puts on this incredible spread.
Oh, the effort was immense. The sources detailed. Quail, ceps, cauliflower, paella.
And the rooster potatoes. Can't forget those.
Never forget the potatoes.
Yeah.
It was all meant to create this facade of high culture, intellectual brilliance.
And the guests were a who's who of their world, right? Novelists, editors, journalists.
A microcosm of the 90-30 elite, yeah. Graham and Mary Sheldrake, the novelist and his wife. John Bale, the vet, and Tony Spufford, the botanist. Harry Kitchener, the editor and Vivian's lover, with his wife Jane, the potter. Chris and Harriet Gage, the journalist, all gathered at the barn.
But the vibe wasn't exactly sparkling intellectual exchange, was it? Things were tense from the start.
Understatement. The sources reveal this incredible backstory with the Sheldrakes. Graham confessed his affair to Mary on the drive over to the dinner.
Wow. Talk about timing.
But then it gets even more complicated, because Mary's reaction wasn't devastation, it was relief. She felt released because she was planning her own affair with an architect, Leonard.
No way. So they arrive at the dinner party, both knowing the marriage is over, but for different secret reasons.
Almost. Because the documentation tracks Graham retreating to the guest room before dinner.
Okay.
And he finds Mary's phone, looks through it, discovers her text with Leonard, so his guilt instantly turns into this silent, simmering rage.
Good grief. Imagine bringing that energy to the dinner table.
Right. The tension must have been electric. And then the actual conversation seems to have just sagged.
Pulled down by vet stories.
Apparently. John Bale, the vet, kept bringing the mood down with these graphic tales of animal suffering.
Like the tortoise.
Yeah, surgery on a tortoise with a blockage, which prompted Francis to, quote, larken darkly, the anesthetic from which none come round. Cheery stuff.
And a snake.
A grass snake with a crushed spine he'd operated on. It's almost perfectly symbolic, isn't it? These small, contained tragedies happening alongside the big, unacknowledged human ones.
So personal betrayal, simmering, macabre vet stories. And then Francis decides to launch into his climate change rant.
Exactly. Shifts gears completely. And this rant is crucial historically. It's a perfect example of what the future calls the derangement.
We have a record of this.
Likely from Harriet Gage's interview tape. Captures his tone, his absolute certainty. He'd had a fair bit of gin, apparently. He was reacting to some leaked UN climate report.
And his arguments weren't just dismissal, they were specific, twisted justifications for inaction.
Aggressively misinformed, yeah. He starts by calling the whole UN panel a gravy train.
Right, for the left-leaning so-called scientists.
Classic stuff. Then he gets into the science. Tuvalu isn't sinking because of sea level rise. It's local seismic activity. Warming is actually good. More grain in Canada and Russia, fewer flu deaths.
Benefits. It all balances out.
That was his mantra. And the physics were even wilder. More CO2 means faster plant growth, they'll absorb it. Warming creates water vapor, which forms clouds.
Which reflects sunlight, a planetary shield.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
It all balanced out.
Yeah.
Delivered with total conviction.
And that certainty, that refusal to face consequences despite the evidence, that's the core of the derangement.
Precisely. This collective cognitive bias. Choosing short-term comfort, short-term gain, over long-term survival. They knew on some level, but refused to accept the implication.
It's the same entitlement again, isn't it? The same pattern as the Percy Green situation, just scaled up globally.
If he, the genius, wasn't worried, why should anyone else be? It's chilling.
But the dinner conversation wasn't only climate denial. They talked foreign policy, too.
Yes, recent events. The London Olympics from 2012, and more significantly, Russia's annexation of Crimea in February 2014.
And the consensus around the table was, what?
Shockingly dismissive from our future vantage point. The general feeling was that Crimea had always been Russian anyway.
And Ukraine could afford to lose this small triangle of land, just like that.
Casual geopolitics, based on, frankly, historical ignorance and wishful thinking. And the kicker.
What's that?
The archives prove it. 8 years later, when Russia launched its full-scale invasion in 2022, these same dinner guests had conveniently forgotten their earlier views. Memory is fragile, politics even more so.
That dinner party really becomes a microcosm, doesn't it? Personal betrayal, climate denial, historical blindness, all setting the stage for what came next.
It perfectly encapsulates the judgment the future levels against that whole era.
Which brings us to how the future actually sees that period, 1990 to 2030, the so-called Golden Age.
Yeah, the academics studying it call it the best and worst of times. They see the brilliance, the incredible achievements.
Genome mapping, the internet, early AI, the Webb telescope, things the future can't replicate.
Exactly. Unbelievable invention. But running right alongside it
Was this staggering, boneheaded greed.
That's the phrase they use.
Yeah.
They just can't reconcile the two. The brilliance and the sheer suicidal avarice.
Like flying thousands of miles for a week's holiday.
Burning irreplaceable fuel for fun, raising ancient forests for, what, paper napkins, disposable packaging. It seems insane to them.
And the core issue wasn't ignorance. They knew.
The archives leave no doubt they knew. The sources say the 90-30 people watched amazed as the decades sped by and the derangement gathered pace, the weapons proliferated, and they did little.
Even as they knew what was coming.
Right, so the future students conclude, harshly, that they were brilliant in their avarice, and they were idiots who were throwing it all away.
Yeah. It's hard to argue with that judgment looking back from the ruins. Let's talk about those ruins. The collapse wasn't slow, was it? There was the inundation in 2042.
That's key. It wasn't just gradual decline. The inundation was catastrophic. Triggered, the sources suggest, by a limited nuclear conflict.
Which caused immediate tsunamis.
Devastating coastal areas, yes. And that was then compounded by the already rising sea levels and extreme weather, creating vast new inland seas.
Like the Vale of Oxford becoming the Vale of Oxford Sea. Real geographical transformation.
Huge changes. Landmarks submerged, entire regions lost. And the society that survived lives with the consequences. Stagnation, scarcity.
Life expectancy plummeting.
Down to just 62, on average. The Blundys lived well past that. To the future, the 90-30 era looks like paradise.
Cleaner air, better food, more wildlife.
Everything. A lost Eden. Their world lacks diversity, biological and cultural. Innovation is dead. They just scavenge the past, terrified of repeating its mistakes.
And that fear fuels the contempt they feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The students reading these archives, they struggle to see the 90-30 people as, well, as human, like them. They see them as ignorant, squalid, and destructive louts.
Who deserved the megadeaths? That's brutal.
It's the judgment of trauma. They can't forgive the past for its wastefulness, its carelessness. The data is there, but the empathy is gone.
Okay, let's bring it back to the central narrative thread. The hunt for that poem, a corona for Vivian, because that search becomes the key to unlocking the real insight.
Right, the poem itself, Francis read it at the dinner, a sequence of sonnets. He thought it was a masterpiece, a gift capturing Vivian's love of nature.
Even though he admitted he didn't know anything about nature himself. I don't know the names of flowers, and I don't give a damn.
Exactly, it was a performance. About his genius, really.
Yeah.
Not her love of nature.
And Vivian saw right through it.
She did. She thought maybe he was trying to make up for being awful, or maybe just trying to outdo Seamus Heaney. More literary competition.
And Francis destroyed all the other copies, intending hers on vellum to be the only one.
Yes. But Vivian, hurt and angry about his later behavior, decided the poem shouldn't survive. She wanted his grand gesture erased, hidden.
Which puts the future biographer, Thomas, in this impossible spot. The main artifact is missing, deliberately hidden by the subject's wife.
His quest shifts. It's less about finding a poem, more about how do you even do biography when you have this much data, yet the core truth feels missing?
The biographer's philosophical dilemma.
How to write about real people whose inner life is still ultimately hidden despite the data flood. He finds this idea drawing on Richard Holmes.
Set out the facts, but invent within the confines of the probable.
Exactly. Merge history and the literature where the facts run out. Thomas decides he has to use Blundy not just as a subject, but as a vehicle to explore the whole disastrous era.
And the actual search zeroes in on this incredibly specific clue, coordinates.
From the archivist, Donald Drummond, his niece Dolly, a mathematician, helped decode something. Coordinates. 51 degrees 44, 14 seconds north, 2 degrees 4 foot, 18 seconds west.
Which linked to a note in Vivian's journal.
A cryptic note. 4 meters out from a long siege. The southeastern edge of the old dairy building at the barn.
But the barn isn't just in Gloucestershire anymore. It's on the Cotswold Islands, a militarized zone.
An archipelago now.
Yeah.
So the search requires a real expedition. Thomas and his collaborator, Rose, who's also his lover, they have to travel to this remote, restricted site.
It's a physical quest now, not just academic.
Totally. They spend days hacking through overgrown ruins, sawing through roots. The military presence makes it tense. They're digging based purely on Dolly's coordinates at Dolly's spot.
And eventually, they find something.
After days of hard labor, a metal case.
The moment of truth. After all this searching, this academic obsession spanning generations.
You can imagine the anticipation. They pull out this case. Inside another case, plastic, expertly welded shut, packed with preservative crystals. The 90-30 people were meticulous about preservation, even in their greed.
So, the climax. They open the case. What's inside?
2 packages. The first one is, well, it's dark, tapered. Thomas unwraps it. It's Percy Green's unfinished violin replica. The view tempts Gornery.
Wow. Percy's violin, that's incredibly poignant.
Isn't it? A symbol of Vivian's other life. The life of craft, kindness, music. The life Francis essentially destroyed or forced her to abandon. Her personal tragedy.
Right there. Alongside the historical quest. And the second package, the one Thomas thinks is the poem.
That's the big reveal. He cuts through the plastic wrapping, hands probably shaking, opens this heavy folder, expecting vellum, expecting sonnets.
Oh, yeah.
He looks down, And the source just records his reaction. It's not. It isn't poetry. It's prose.
The rose, not the poem.
Vivian's prose, her final journal, her memoir, the raw, unfiltered source of all the intimate, difficult, detailed knowledge we've just been discussing.
So that's what she buried. Her story, not his poem.
Exactly. A final act of historical reclamation. She buried her truth, her voice, her experience of that life, instead of his performative self-sufficient gift. She seized the narrative.
Which means Francis's genius ultimately failed, didn't it? It couldn't capture the real truth. Vivian's hidden prose is the real treasure.
It fulfills the biographer's quest, finding that truth poised between fact and fiction. It wasn't in the celebrated art, but in the buried testimony.
And the story doesn't end there. There's a final personal moment.
A deeply personal moment of hope, right there amidst the ruins and the weight of this history.
Rose takes Thomas's hand.
After he's found Vivian's truth, Rose, his partner, his anchor in the search, takes in hand and places it on her belly.
She's pregnant.
She's pregnant. In this broken, stagnant world, haunted by the past's failures, it's this profound statement, a commitment to life, to a new future, an act of defiance against all that cynicism.
It's powerful. So we've traced this arc from the overwhelming data of 2014 through the moral failures of the derangement, the catastrophe of the inundation, to this final discovery. Vivian's voice challenging the myth of Francis Blundy.
And it shows that just having data, even infinite data, doesn't automatically give you understanding. Sometimes the most important truths are deliberately hidden, needing effort, trauma, and reflection to surface.
It forces us to think about our own time, doesn't it? We are living in the archive right now. We are the 90-30 people creating the records that the future will judge.
We are the ancients now, and we've seen how knowing what's coming, like Blundy knew about the climate, doesn't guarantee action. It can just lead to denial, rationalization, more entitlement.
Which leaves us with that final, really uncomfortable question for you, the listener. If future scholars dug up your digital life, every message, every search, every private thought committed to text a century from now, what truth would your archive tell about you, about our time? Would they see us as brilliant, avaricious, or just deranged?